Okay, so on this map, if you're looking at the screen, you can see Corsica and Sardinia. Sardinia. This is the two of the places where Hitler was fooled into believing that the Allies were going to attack, and instead of going up through Sicily. And the invasion of Sicily occurs in July of 1943. We kind of take these things for granted, but it was phenomenal. Besides the fact that the Germans were fooled and they had weakened their defensive lines in Sicily. They had pulled out some troops, not all troops, but some troops. But just the logistics of getting 150,000 troops on 3,000 ships, 4,000 aircraft. Just the logistics of these landings are completely mind-boggling. And we kind of take their, maybe it's just me, not you, take their success for granted. The other thing is weather has to play a role here. You can't really land troops. Um, if the weather doesn't cooperate, if winds blow up and the beaches become unmanageable because the waves become too fierce. But anyway, it worked out beautifully. The invasion of Sicily occurred, and then very, very soon after Sicily was invaded, Mussolini, the dictator of Italy, he was overthrown, which is what Churchill, which is what Churchill said would happen. But what Churchill didn't anticipate is how ruthless the Germans were. As soon as Mussolini was overthrown, the Germans come in to Rome and they take control over Italy. So even though Mussolini's overthrown, Germany basically occupies Italy. It becomes another occupied nation. And as you see when you watch Rome Open City, the Germans were, of course, quite ruthless in their behavior in Italy. So just repeat, July 43, Sicily happens. Mussolini's overthrown. The Germans come in. They occupy Italy. They take control of Italy. Italy becomes an occupied nation. The Sicily campaign goes very, very quickly. It's over in 38 days. Sicily is captured. An animated map of just like a minute and a half long if you want to see it on the Italian campaign. And it culminates in late August 1943. And then the Germans have a major success in Sicily. They're able, if you know, so Italy, of course, is a boot. And then there's the Strait of Messina. There's just a small body of water between the Italian boot and Sicily. And what the Germans managed to do is they managed to get 100,000 of their troops in Sicily off Sicily into Italy without any problem. This was a major failure on the part of the Allies. They allowed the Germans to retreat very, very or in an orderly way from Sicily across the narrow straits of Messina into Italy. And this would end up causing the death of tens of thousands of US and British and other Allied troops. Because what these 100,000 troops were able to do, reinforced by other German troops that Hitler sent into Italy, some, not a lot, but some that came from the Eastern Front. What they managed to do is create very, very powerful defensive lines in Italy. As I showed you in a previous map, the center of Italy is mountainous. And what the Germans were able to do, and they were excellent tactical fighters, they were able to create, at least in southern Italy, at least, and then later they created a defensive line in northern Italy, the so-called Gustav line. Across the narrow, Italy is also narrow. And it just was horrific. It was a horrific fight. for the Americans and the for the Americans and the British and the Allies, because the Germans held the high ground. The Germans were excellent tactical fighters, and the Italian campaign became an absolute nightmare for Allied soldiers that were involved in it. It became just a brutal slog, and it cost the lives of so many of our men. So ultimately, Hitler, who had reinforced Italy with 16 divisions, and remember now, Germany controls Italy. Um, he decides that he is going to fight it out in Italy. So, in a certain respect, Churchill was right that Hitler reinforced Italy. So he did withdraw his troops from France, or at least a portion from the Soviet Union. But what hurt Hitler, I mean, what Church, I don't know why I keep doing that. What Churchill kept underestimating was just how horrific the fighting was as Allied troops made it up the Italian boot. And somebody, one of the documentaries had a great line where the German soldier, an officer after the war, told an Allied officer, "Yeah, if you're going to invade Italy, invade it from the north. Don't invade it from the south." Basically, that's the thumbnail sketch of Italy. So our troops land in September 1943 and begin their very tough slog up the Italian coast towards Rome. Without getting too much into the detail of the Italian campaign, Rome wasn't captured until June of 1944. The Gustav Line, which you see on this map, wasn't breached, and Rome wasn't captured until basically the same day the Allies landed in Normandy in 1944. And the commander of U.S. troops, very controversial figure to this day, a man by the name of Mark Clark. A lot of historians are very critical of Mark Clark and the Italian campaign and the way he ran it. He was a little bit of a grandstander. And he was quite angry and disappointed that D-Day completely overshadowed the capture of Rome. Normally, the capture of Rome in June of 1944 would have been a huge story, right? The eternal city back in Allied hands. What could be better? But the capture of Rome got completely lost and the enormity of D-Day. And the other thing I want you to remember, and this is very important, the capture of Rome did not mean the defeat of Germany in Italy. What the Germans did is they went north and they created another defensive line, which again proved incredibly deadly for Allied troops. So don't think for a second that the capture of Rome means the capture of Italy. There was more tough fighting ahead, even after the capture of Rome in June of 1944. So the Italian campaign, very rough, very difficult campaign, very bloody, very frustrating, very discouraging, really until the very end of World War II. It was a complete nightmare. Churchill didn't deliver on his promise of an easy victory. And really, the Italian campaign is the last time that Churchill gets his way in World War II, because of the difficulty of the fighting. By 1944, a year after the Italian campaign started in Sicily, the U.S. is finally ready to invade France. So the soft underbelly strategy goes by the wayside in the Italian campaign. So the big take home for those of you in this class about the Italian campaign, It happens after North Africa. It's part of the soft underbelly. Churchill promised it'd be easy. It wasn't easy. It was horrific. The Germans basically occupied Italy, and they fought the Allies every step of the way. Total nightmare for the Allied because they're having to fight a very skillful and well-armed army that holds the high ground, and it's very hard to defeat an army that holds the high ground.